All right, fans, welcome to another episode of DK Retro. Today, me and my co-host here, Rick Head, who's in charge of Hardcore Wrestling Radio, we're going to be taking out and we're going to be going on another edition of the Punch Out series. But before we go through that, let me welcome my partner. Look at, I'm stumbling today. I've been hitting too many times by those characters. Rick, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing all right, and I'm going to tell you, it's been a while since I played Mike Tyson Punch-Out. It is not the same type of game that we've had in the past, but it definitely has a game of its own. It has a lot of the original characters, and to me, really has that nostalgia factor. It's something that, good old childhood memories, I suppose.
Absolutely. Punch Out, actually, when Punch Out came out for the Nintendo, it was just called Punch Out. It was following the success of the arcade version of Punch Out. But due to the limitations of the Nintendo Entertainment System, they had to chuck back a little bit of the graphics and the character, the wireframe that we were so used to with the arcade version. That's why they created the little guy boxer called Little Mac, who was basically that was your hero throughout. Also, just for the North American version, this is something some fans may not know. The North American version was named Mike Tyson's Punch Out just to give it that little bit of celebrity, the little bit of celebrity attachment there. But it was originally called Punch Out. The game was created in 1987 by Genno Takata. I hope I say it right, Takata, and he produced the original, arcade version of Punch Out. So he was in part of Nintendo when they created the Mike Tyson's Punch Out for the NES. Rick, I know we've played the arcade version. This is a little bit different. This one's, I think, for me, the actual controls are a lot easier.
I wouldn't. They are, and also again, there's a lot more diverse characters in this game. I mean, in both Punch Out and Super Punch Out in the arcade version, there's just six guys. I think here there's just a lot more. Not to mention the way you get the power up punch is a lot different because you kind of have to catch the guys off guard to get that punch,
Absolutely.
to get
And
that
also,
super punch. Excuse me.
yep, absolutely. And what's funny about this also is that in the Nintendo, they came out with two versions. So they actually came out with the original Punch Out from that was originally created, and then they came out with Mike Tyson's Punch Out, which is they're the same game. It's just one has Mike Tyson at the end, and the other one they had Sandman, a guy called Sandman, not to be confused with the ECW legend Sandman. He didn't come out and hit you with a Singapore cane. It would have been funny if he did, but that was a different era. Rick, I think we're gonna continue with the Punch Out series. So we're not gonna go into Punch Out. We're gonna go with Punch Out, the Nintendo version. Do you have that one?
No, actually, I still have Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And for those of you a little bit of history, the reason why they made the switch at the time when Mike Tyson's came out, Mike Tyson was still very hot. He was huge in the boxing scene, and then there was that controversy where he I forget the wife's name, where he had a domestic dispute with his wife. Had some other issues, and I think Nintendo kind of wanted to get away from that. Um, and that's where I believe they had, like I said, the other super character. And again, unlike the other Punch Out games in the arcades, once you beat Mike Tyson, it's been a while. I believe the game is actually over.
Yeah, actually, no, I actually played it and one time beat Mike Tyson, and all it does is restart. After it gives you like a winning, you get your winning screen and all, you come back and you basically are fighting all over again, but you're not fighting like the simple characters. Now everybody's a little bit stronger, even Glass Joe. So I just switched over to Mike Tyson's Punch Out. So me and Rick are in the same game. Um, right now we're gonna fire him up, Rick, and let's see how far we go. Now, fans, we're not going to complete the game, obviously. We're not going to go all through it. We're just going to play a couple of rounds, get a couple of feel for the game, give our review and opinions, and then we'll go from there. All right, Rick, if you want to start yours up, I'll let you take over, and I guess the first opponent will be Glass Joe. Yeah, you tell him.
as I have my microphone off. But yes, I actually started playing a little bit before. And one thing I forgot about, again, when it comes to the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, you actually have stamina. And you have three rounds. So it's a lot more. It's much more diverse. Again, there's some boxers that I have issues with. There's like the King Bubba guy. I forget.
King Hippo.
King Hippo. And for some reason, it's been a while because I don't remember how to beat all the games. 'Cause I used to fly through them, but again, it's been almost 15, 20 years since I played it. And he's probably so far one of my most hardest guys. Right now, believe it or not, I'm actually having a problem with Glass Joe because I'm not being able to get any of those super punches. And again, once you get tired, you have to hide. You kind of have to,
duck and move.
Yeah.
Actually, in my game right now, I just beat Glass Joe. I knocked him out. I'm ready for the next challenge. So I'm going to keep going. And the next guy is Von Krauser. Now, here's this was the German character that they put in. It pretty much very easy. Another character, easy to fight and get in there with. One thing that fans probably don't remember, that if you hit select during the between scenes, it makes Little Mac's manager rub his shoulder and you get increased stamina. So those are one things when I started playing this years ago when it first came out, I didn't know that. And one day I just hit select. And hey, he looks like he's jerking up behind Little Mac. But then I realized he was just getting some more stamina.
And you know what? I just saw that too. It looks like he's just kind of,
All right, Little Mac, you get your feet in here while I kind of jerk off back here.
Yeah, once you get off, you'll be able to go a lot longer. Although that doesn't exactly, that's not your typical guy, but hey, I guess in the Little Mac with his trainer behind him, you never know. Yeah, and I just got behind this German guy. If you notice, like in the other Punch-Out games, they kind of make the little move, a little tells, like in the case, the German guy, again, I really don't remember all the names. He was...
Yeah, Von Krauser.
Von Krauser, thank you.
I guess he does like a head shake. He does a D'Lo Brown.
Exactly. And once you get that, you can kind of hit the moves. But if you're even off for a second, that's when he starts getting control. So, you can't just sit there and, punch and kick, keep on hitting the punches. You got to actually literally learn how to box the right way, or at least to the settings of the, to at least the as I can't talk to mine, just the way the game goes. So, anyways, definitely a great game. Probably one of the better games for the Nintendo when it came out. It definitely has that replay factor that it's back in the Nintendo era. It was certainly an all-time favorite.
Oh, absolutely. I think the only time we've actually had boxing games was out of the old Atari 2600 and 7800. Let's forget about the 5200. That was a horrible system. We used to see like an over the head view where it was just all you saw was a ball with two arms punching forward. At least with Nintendo, they got it right. It was not exactly like the arcade, but this one was entertaining. I'm up to now Piston Honda, who's the minor circuit champion. And that's another thing, Rick. At least they gave you goals. In this one, you're after certain opponents, you immediately get a title match. And after the title match, you're moving on to, like, you do a nice little training scene, a Rocky kind of training scene.
Well, and another thing is, keep in mind, at the time, Nintendo did not have any saves. So, back then, all they really did was give you little passcodes to get to the next segment. And here's a little teaser, or something that maybe a lot of people might not have known, is that the passcodes are the exact same ones. I remember actually writing them all down, and I figured, they'll probably change, and they didn't. It was the same ones every time.
Oh, absolutely. And then there was all those numbers and letters. It was just a literal sentence. Here's another thing, too. Something that some games have it, some games don't. At least in the Punch-Out series. Not the Mike Tyson version, but I think in the regular Punch-Out, if you look in the first row on your upper left, you see the little heads bopping up and down. There's a guy with a beard. He's the only one with the beard. Doing certain characters, he will actually make facial expressions. And and that's something that I didn't know until one day I was playing. And I said, "Wait a minute, the guy's moving. He doesn't move."
Well, there is another little piece of trivia. If you look over in the right hand corner, and this, of course, is the arcade version, you see Donkey Kong in the arena. And that I found that kind of funny, because considering that Donkey Kong was one of the first few games that Nintendo came out started with. Um, it also spawned off a lot of things. Pretty much Mario, who was just at the time, I think they just called him the plumber. That's where he really started to move up. So
Well, and actually, in Mike Tyson's Punch Out and in Punch Out, Mario is the referee. So if you look at the referee in the ring, he is Mario. So I could see where the Donkey Kong kind of threw in. And again, I think for an early game system, you know, we just fresh had, the Ataris, the Intellivisions, the ColecoVisions. For Nintendo to come out, this was something. This was a really entertaining game. They had different versions. They had, like I said, we're going back to the Mike Tyson's Punch Out. They had the regular Punch Out, and then they had the gold release. The gold release basically was the final opponent was Super Macho Man, not to be confused with the oh yeah Macho Man. It, if it was, he wouldn't be hitting you with punches. He'll be hitting you with elbows. But he was your opponent in that final game. And also, what I didn't know was in the Super Punch Out arcade game, Rick, Super Macho Man was also that same boss.
yes, if I'm not, I never actually played what's called the Gold Edition of a Punch Out, which of course we're talking the Nintendo version. But yes, again, they had to kind of create it. Now, Super Macho Man in Mike Tyson's was never in there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was the big boss when they came out with Super Punch Out, which was on the Super Nintendo. Not to be confused with the arcade game. And I just got my ass kicked by Piston Hurricane or whatever.
Yeah, Piston Honda.
Piston
Yeah,
Honda. Yes, it's not Piston Hurricane. Piston Honda. I'm getting all my games fucked up tonight.
yeah, it wasn't It wasn't Hurricane. The guy, what was his name? Shane Helms from WWE. Look out! There's a hurricane in town.
Yeah, well, again, Piston Honda and Piston Hurricane had the same schematics. Basically, their super punch was just sit there and hit you 50,000 times till you went down. If you were lucky enough or you were good enough, you could dodge those punches. He'll do one big super uppercut, and then you punch him. Now, again, here's another thing that's totally different from the arcade version. In Mike Tyson's Punch Out, if you lose, you automatically get knocked down to rank 2. You don't get another shot. So, which means you have to go beat the guy that you beat before to move up the rank again, which I think was a pretty cool feature.
Exactly, and the game had good replayability. Here's another thing, fans. It's a little tidbit for you guys. After the license was done with Mike Tyson, they did a special Punch Out character where they replaced Mike Tyson with James Buster Douglas. James Buster Douglas, for you fans that don't know, beat Mike Tyson for the World Boxing title back in the day. So that's kind of a little thing you don't see it. It's very rare, and that version came out in 1990. So while this version, Mike Tyson's Punch Out and the Punch Out series came out in 1987, it was produced in 1987. Um, the version of Punch Out with James Buster Douglas, again, very rare to find, came out in North America in 1990s, and again, it is very hard to find. But with that, Rick, I gotta say, I just went by. I'm up to King Hippo now. I'm not going to continue going. But I'm just gonna say, Rick, out of all the boxing games from back in the day, and we're looking at from Nintendo back, um, I gotta say, if I were to give this like a ranking of 10, I gotta give it at least a 9.5. Some characters were extremely hard, but if you played it enough, you got used to it. The playability is there. The graphics were good for the day. The little segments where you're between rounds, you're seeing what the different expressions and you could say the little bit of what was it, the little quotes that each fighter would do, and your manager would give you little tidbits of information. So again, for me, 9.5, really fun game. um, what do you think, Rick?
Well, I have to admit, when I first got the game, I wasn't really overly impressed with it because I was still still playing Punch Out in the arcade. So for me, it took a little bit before I really got behind it, but eventually I did, and I got to like it, and it does have that replay value. And surprisingly, I didn't even realize that I am actually paying the Punch Out, not Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And yes, as you said, pointed out, there was the Super Macho Man was the big boss. But you know what, Joe? I think we're gonna wrap it up. I have to give it myself. Yeah, definitely 9 out of 10. It had the replay value. The only other thing I really wish they could have had back in the day was the save points, but obviously that just wasn't the case. The technology was not up. But that's it.
Right. It was very rare. The games were very rare. Like I said, it was fun for me. I'm up to King Hippo now, folks, and I just knocked them down. You got to have patience. It's been a great time reviewing this old game. This was really fun. Um, and you know what, Rick? I think we're going to call it from here. Our next version, fans, we're going to work on. And again, this is the DK Retro series is a work in progress, so please excuse us as we go through it. But the next game that we're going to go through the series is Super Punch-Out, which was on the Super Nintendo. But so if you get a chance and you have an old Nintendo, pull it out and look for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out or look out for Punch-Out. I guarantee if you want a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of a challenge, give these games a try. Rick, can you tell? I'm sorry, Rick. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and what's going on?
Well, for you wrestling fans out there, we have a Hardcore Wrestling Radio podcast. We've had some great interviews in the past month. We've talked with Rhino. We're the type of, we really don't pull any punches. It's really not a show for younger viewers, but, because we use a lot of adult language. We pretty much say what we want, how we fucking want to say it. Pardon me for those of you who are younger viewers who are listening. Anyway.
Yeah, this is not the group that we're going to say, oh, Jilly God.
And if you want to join in the conversation, head on over to Facebook in the group sections under HWR Chat Room, and please subscribe to us over at youtube.com/HWR Show.
You know what? Thanks very much, Rick. And fans, you can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com Joseph Knight Manager, where that's basically my personal page. You guys can leave me messages. You can also follow DK Retro, Danger Nights, where we do reviews on games like these, classic movies, videos, TV shows, you name it, we're watching it or listening to it. And you can find that at facebook.com DK Retro. You can follow me on Twitter. Lately, I've been getting a lot of Twitter fans, and I appreciate that, guys. It's been a lot of fun people sending me messages, asking me if I'm getting back in wrestling-related questions and game questions. You could find me on Twitter at JKnightCWA. And with that, Rick, we're going to unlace these gloves. We're going to clean them out, spit in the bucket, wait for Mickey to come out like, you're a bum, choke the chicken. And we'll get ready for next time for Super Punch-Out. Thank you, fans.
I think, quick before we end it, I think Mickey from Rocky would have been a good idea, but unfortunately I think copyright infringements would have been an issue. But yeah.
You know what? Before we cut off, Rick, and you bring that up, there was a PlayStation 2 game, and I think it is for PlayStation 2. I know we're going off a little bit off the Punch-Out series, but this is real quick. If you want to play Mickey, the manager of Rocky, in PlayStation 2, there was a boxing game called Rocky, where you can play different valuable characters of the Rocky movies. Rocky, Clubber Lang, who was Mr. T, Apollo Creed, Dolph Lundgren's Russian character. You can even fight against a Mickey, so you can get a chance to beat that little guy up for making you chase that damn chicken. So with that, Rick, let's go home.
And with that, guys, for your host of DK Retro, I am your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you when we see you.
Chase the chicken, chase the chicken.